I'm moving out of America in the next 3 weeks by any, and I mean any, means necessary. I'm genuinely going crazy having to live in a toxic American capitalist society, but they say if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
And while U.S. policies continue to put pressure on African nations, many African Americans are making a different choice. Ditching the American dream, they are returning to Africa to reconnect with their roots, reclaim their heritage, and rediscover their identity.
What if the American dream wasn't really a dream at all, but a nightmare you couldn't wake up from? That's the unsettling question thousands of African Americans are asking as they turn their backs on the United States and head to Africa. Not for a holiday, not for a short break, but to start over, permanently. For generations, the narrative has always pointed one way: Africans risking everything to reach the West in search of opportunity, stability, or simply survival. But today, a quiet reversal is taking place. The same land once painted by Western media as poor, unstable, and hopeless is now becoming a refuge, a home, and a new beginning for those who were told they had already made it in America. The question is, why? To answer that, we need to step back. In 2019, the world marked 400 years since the first enslaved Africans were dragged from their homes and shipped across the Atlantic. It was the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, the largest forced migration in human history. More than 12 million men, women, and children were taken. And while millions perished in the hellish journey, those who survived were condemned to a life of brutality. They worked in the fields, built wealth for others, and endured unimaginable suffering. Even after abolition, their descendants carried the scars. Legal freedom didn't erase racism. Instead, African Americans lived through Jim Crow laws, segregation, systemic discrimination, and police brutality. And though America branded itself as the land of opportunity, millions of black citizens felt like second-class participants in a system stacked against them. Fast forward to the 21st century, and the divide is still visible. Yes, slavery is long gone, but racism, inequality, and fear remain constant companions. For many African Americans, the so-called American dream never felt secure. It was survival with a smile. That's why Ghana's bold campaign in 2019, the Year of Return, struck a nerve. The West African country, once a hub in the slave trade, extended an invitation. Come home. Reconnect. Rebuild. The message resonated deeply across the diaspora. Thousands responded, not just with short visits, but with life-changing decisions. People applied for visas, relocated, and in some cases even gained citizenship. In 2019 alone, Ghana welcomed thousands of African Americans. And by the following year, hundreds had already chosen to stay permanently. Then came 2020. The murder of George Floyd was broadcast to the world, triggering protests that stretched from Minneapolis to London, from Cape Town to Tokyo. The Black Lives Matter movement exposed the raw, unhealed wounds of America's racial divide. For many African Americans, it wasn't just another headline. It was confirmation of what they had always felt, that their lives carried less weight in the country they called home. That was the tipping point. Since then, the number of African Americans leaving the U.S. for Africa has surged. More than 5,000 have relocated to Ghana alone. Last year, 524 were granted citizenship. And Ghana isn't standing alone. Other African nations are following suit, rolling out incentives to attract members of the diaspora. Rwanda, Gambia, and Kenya are all opening doors, and each new arrival tells a story that adds fuel to this quiet but powerful movement. Take the story of Sanjaya Davis. On paper, she had everything: education, a respected career in Washington, D.C., and a thriving social life. But inside, she lived in constant fear. Every drive home carried the thought, what if I'm pulled over? Will I survive the encounter? For Sanjaya, America never felt safe. She carried what she called generational trauma, a deep, inherited pain running from slavery through the Tulsa Race Massacre, right up to the racism she faced daily. George Floyd's murder was her breaking point. She could no longer hold on. So she left. Her first visit to Ghana in 2019 during the year of return had already planted a seed. When the time came to act, she didn't hesitate. She packed her life in boxes, left behind the comfort of Washington, and stepped onto African soil. Today, Sanjaya says she finally feels what she never felt in America: safety, belonging, and peace of mind. She still runs her therapy practice online, but in Ghana, she lives with a freedom that money couldn't buy. "I feel loved. I feel supported. I feel like I matter," she says. "Here, I'm not looked at for the color of my skin. I'm just a person." And she's not alone. Thousands are echoing her words. But this isn't just about individuals. It's about a collective movement, a migration so unexpected that it forces us to ask, is Africa becoming the new land of hope, even as millions of Africans still dream of the West? That's where the story begins. For every person like Sanjaya Davis, there are hundreds more who share a similar story. Different names, different paths, but the same longing for peace of mind, dignity, and belonging. Take Morris Breiger, a former U.S. Navy SEAL. For years, Morris lived the life of discipline and sacrifice that comes with serving in America's military. He was trained to defend the so-called land of freedom. But when asked why he left America for Ghana, his answer was startling. "Nobody's going to get shot tonight in Ghana. Think about that." His words highlight a contradiction. African nations are often painted by Western media as unstable or unsafe. Yet the reality is more complex. According to the World Population Review, the United States ranks second in the world for gun-related deaths. And when you add the long list of African Americans killed by police, you begin to understand why Morris, a man who once fought for America, feels safer walking the streets of Accra than those of his own hometown. And Morris is far from the only one. Across the African continent, you'll now find communities of African Americans building new lives. From teachers and entrepreneurs to musicians and therapists, they are starting over, not out of desperation, but out of choice. One of them is Kenneth Harris, a 38-year-old retired U.S. veteran who chose Kenya as his new home. Kenneth had spent years searching for a place where the color of his skin wasn't a target, but a badge of belonging. He found that in Nairobi. Today, he runs a successful Airbnb business and lives in an upscale apartment with views of the city's golden sunsets. From his rooftop terrace, he describes a life filled with the very things he never truly experienced in America: safety, community, and acceptance. "Here, I feel like I belong," he says simply. This sense of belonging isn't just emotional, it's practical. In cities like Nairobi, Accra, Kigali, and Dar es Salaam, African Americans are investing in businesses that fuel the local economy. Travel agencies, restaurants, relocation services, farms, and cultural centers are springing up, all built by returnees who came searching for home but ended up creating opportunity. Take the story of Adila Muhammad, the founder of Adila Relocation Services in Kenya. She moved to Nairobi just 4 days after burying her mother, looking for healing. What she found was more than peace. It was purpose. Today, her company helps African Americans make the transition to Africa smoother. From finding homes to setting up bank accounts, Adila has helped dozens of families relocate permanently. Her client list is growing fast, with some people already booking years in advance. For these families, leaving the U.S. isn't a spontaneous decision. It's a carefully planned move, a declaration that they want a different future for themselves and their children. They don't even know the date, Adila says. They just know they're leaving. But here's what makes this movement fascinating. Many outsiders assume it's political, that people are leaving because of Donald Trump's administration or America's toxic political climate. And while politics plays a role, the reality runs deeper. Most of those leaving say it isn't about Trump or Biden or any other leader. It's about a search for something America has failed to provide: safety, peace, and belonging. Kenneth Harris explains it best. The real motivation is quality of life. That statement should make anyone pause. People are leaving one of the wealthiest countries on earth, not for higher wages, not for better infrastructure, but for something more basic: peace, safety, dignity. Popular YouTuber Austin Hollowman put it in even simpler terms. After years of traveling, he settled in Kenya because, as he said, "People look like me." For him, that sense of belonging was everything. He recalls a small moment that stuck with him. When his taxi broke down, within minutes, a stranger stopped to help. "That's when I knew," he says, "I was in the right place." For Austin and thousands like him, Africa isn't just an alternative to America. It's a rebirth. A place to shed centuries of generational trauma and live without fear. But as this wave of return grows, a bigger question rises. Is this just a personal escape for individuals tired of racism in America? Or is it something much larger? A collective shift powerful enough to reshape Africa's future and redefine Black identity across the world? The answer lies in the opportunities and the challenges that come with this movement. Because while thousands are rediscovering freedom, not everyone is convinced it will be smooth sailing.